How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the heck is going on in the universe. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching all my videos, commenting, subscribing, liking, sharing them. I love every single one of you. And thank you guys, thank you to my patrons on my Patreon for supporting my page. And if you guys have never heard of Patreon, you guys want to check it out, go to my link right below at patreon.com/White Light Astrology, where you can subscribe, donate, help me make all these videos, and get a lot more exclusive content. So, thank you guys again. I wanted to say that. And let's go on to this week where I literally just recorded this whole thing, and I stopped recording, and then I look over and I didn't record at all. So this is my second take on this. So a little bit, I already got it all out, so now I could say it a little bit more clearly and slow it a little bit down for you guys again. So Monday, Moon is going to be in Aquarius. It's going to square Jupiter, it's going to trine Mercury and the Sun. And as the Moon left its conjunction with Mars in the South Node, where it's kind of like, okay, we've been here before, now where do we want to go? Where do we need to be? How do we need to see things in order to kind of get a more clear path that really gives us the sense of structure that we really need? However, as the Moon squares Jupiter in Scorpio, where Jupiter in Scorpio, it's retrograde, it's really having us focus on what is our internalized truth, what do we really believe, what does this all mean to us? And as the Moon squares it, we're going to be kind of in this situation where we're looking at all these perspectives and looking at all these options, especially as Mercury and Sun, or Mercury and the Sun conjunct, or they start making their conjunction. But they trine Mars, where it's kind of like we have all this information coming in, there's all of this change. The Moon in Aquarius is kind of like, what perspective do I want to see this? Do I want to be detached? Do I want to be included? It gives us so many different perspectives and variables to really look at our options and really look at our circumstances. But as it squares Jupiter, Jupiter is like, I'm not going to let you get away with just looking around and kind of taking it all in and choosing a third party, unbiased perspective. Jupiter in Scorpio is like, hey man, like, what does this mean for you? Where do you want to take this? What is your truth? What do you believe? Like, what do you want to decide? Where do you want to go? It's not about just focusing on what all the perspectives are and kind of seeing, what your options are. It's really about seeing all your options and deciding which one's going to be best to serve you. So as we go into Tuesday, the Moon's going to go into Pisces, and it's going to sextile Uranus and Saturn, where usually the Moon in Pisces, or I shouldn't say usually, this Moon in Pisces is going to be kind of interesting, because as it moves in and it sextiles Uranus and it sextiles Saturn, we have this opportunity to kind of get clear with who we are and ourselves, and more on I like to say the Holy Trinity level, like, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, ego, self, higher self, inner child, inner God, conscious, things like that. Now, with the Moon going into Pisces, though, we have, as the Moon leaves Aquarius, we got all these options. We're kind of face to face with having to choose one and figure out what's going to be our best path. The Moon in Pisces really allows us this opportunity to get in touch with our intuition, get in touch with our truer selves, our more authentic selves. And as it sextiles Saturn and sextiles Uranus, we have this opportunity to really go, okay, who am I? What is right for me? Don't get too lost in the environment. Don't get lost in the circumstances of everything, but really just channel who you really are. Like, get really clear with yourself. Be real with yourself. And as it sextiles Saturn and sextiles Uranus, I feel like we're going to find a really awesome, chill place to really settle for a second. Just for a second, though. Because as it sextiles Saturn, it's kind of like, hey, channeling my inner self, channeling my higher self, like, this is starting to work. This is giving me results. This is giving me the security and the structure that I need. And as it sextiles Uranus, it's kind of like you feel a little bit more capable and easier to make big decisions and make bigger changes in your life that are usually very uncomfortable. This Moon in Pisces allows for a lot of ease with this. So then on Tuesday, the Mercury, I keep saying the Mercury then conjuncts the Sun. And this is interesting because it conjuncts the Sun, squares Neptune, but it's actually exact on Wednesday as the Moon conjuncts Neptune, 16 degrees Pisces, and Mercury conjuncts the Sun at 16 degrees Gemini, and they're squaring exactly. So on Tuesday, when we have this Moon in Pisces and this Mercury and the Sun conjunct and it's squaring Neptune, it's kind of like we're going to be able to see things way clearer, and that may not be the best, because Neptune is really all about deception. Neptune is all about fantasy and illusion and, just saturating all that can be. Now, with Mercury conjuncting the Sun, and Mercury's going super fast, it's in Gemini, it's in its home sign, it's conjuncting the Sun, where the Sun is like, really beaming down stuff. We have this opportunity, I shouldn't say this opportunity, but we have the circumstance where we're starting to see the truth and more of the, not the reality, like more of the reality of things more than the truth, as it squares Neptune. Because Neptune's like, hey, it wants to deceive us, it wants to play tricks on us. And Mercury's squaring Neptune saying, you know, that's not right. This isn't how it's supposed to be. This is what's real. These are the facts. This is making it more clear. And as the moon's in Pisces during this time, it's going to be kind of like a, what? Like, why? I'm wrong? Or like, I'm being deceived? Like, this is different? But the biggest thing about, before we finish that, is on Tuesday, Venus opposes Pluto. So with Venus being in Cancer, we're wanting to, or I shouldn't say we're wanting to, we're starting to value more of what our internal needs are, where we need to be nurtured, how we need to be taken care of. And as it opposes Pluto, we have this opportunity to really stare at change in the face and step into our power. Where Venus in Cancer is like, man, it feels good to take care of yourself. It feels good to be nurtured. It feels good to be vulnerable, open up, and it feels good to trust. You know, like really just trusting and being strong in that. As it opposes Pluto, we have this opportunity to really step into the power of that trust, really step into the full feeling of what it's going to be like to have that nurturing, to have that sense of connection, to have that sense of love, to have that sense of, you know, inner emotion. And as it opposes Pluto, it kind of is like, hey, this is requiring change. This is requiring, you know, facing your own reality in a really bigger way that's not necessarily so upfront in your face. Well, with Mercury squaring Neptune maybe, but as Venus opposes Pluto, we have this opportunity to really step into our power, to really go, hey, this is, I need to take care of myself, and I'm really starting to value my actions and decisions based on that. So then we get into Wednesday. After Venus opposed Pluto, we have the moon conjuncting Neptune exactly at 16 degrees, and at the exact same time, Mercury conjuncts the sun at 16 degrees, and they're squaring exactly. This is where it's kind of like, hey, this grand water trine energy is emphasized because the moon, Jupiter, and Venus, and Neptune, all in these water signs. It's very emotional, it's very vivid. It's asking us to really feel a lot of things out. But as Mercury and the sun conjunct, it's kind of like, here's the facts. Like, here you go. Choose how you want to use this. Like Mercury, like don't shoot the messenger. It's not Mercury or the sun. It's really Neptune saying, hey, you were kind of blind to this perspective. You were kind of blind to this, you know, reality. And as Mercury and the sun conjunct and squares this, we have this opportunity to make this good or make this bad. These are dualistic signs, Gemini and Pisces. So we have this opportunity to really choose into, like, you know, happiness or choose into, you know, not being happy, basically. And as this kind of happens, really look at all the facts, really look at all the information you've been given, and understand that it's your choice to really go, hey, here's the facts, I've got to make some change. Here's the facts, I've got to stop being lied to. Here's the facts, I've got to stop being so deceived so easily. And that's what Wednesday's really going to entail. And it's going to be very emotional, it's going to be very watery, a lot of water stuff going on. So you want to feel this one out. Like, be with yourself on this one. Don't, you know, overanalyze. Just feel this one out and lead with your heart. North Node's in Leo. So then we get into Thursday, where the moon will then enter Aries, and it will conjunct Chiron, and it will square Saturn. And that's it. And as the moon goes into Aries, this is when we're starting to have that Mars stuff triggered. And on Thursday, too, which is really interesting, Mars conjuncts the South Node exactly, or opposes the North Node exactly. And so we have this moon going into Aries, it conjuncts Chiron, where it's kind of like, we're kind of forced to toughen up. We're kind of forced to be like, hey, like, assertive with where we're wanting to go. And it's squaring Saturn. So maybe we shouldn't be assertive. Maybe we shouldn't be so angry and hostile, because Chiron's right here where it's trying to teach us a lesson of putting ourselves first, you know, kind of brushing things off in a sense and being a little bit more in your power, whereas Chiron and Pisces is kind of like find your healing inside the spirituality. Chiron and Aries is like find your healing in the power, find your healing in the action. But as it squares Saturn, this is going to be a very frustrating thing. As Mars conjuncts the South Node, this is going to be a frustrating thing. It's like, you're going to feel like we've already been here. We've already done this. Like, where's the future going? Like, where am I trying to take all of this kind of stuff? And it is going to be a pretty frustrating day, to say the least. But as this happens, just really take a step back and really look at all these perspectives and all of this insight and all of these messages that you've been getting, and really just look at where you need to take action. Not necessarily need, actually, more of where do you want to take action? Where do you want to lead to? How do you want to feel? What does your essence want to be? So then Venus squares Uranus on Thursday as well. And Venus over here in Cancer just got done with its opposition to Pluto. It's at the later degrees of Cancer. It's squaring Uranus. Venus in Cancer wants us to feel homey. Venus in Cancer wants us to be like, hey, you know, like I want to feel comfortable. I want to feel nurtured. I want to feel taken care of. And as it squares Uranus, it's going to kind of be like, hey, no, you got to get comfortable and change. You have to get comfortable with moving to somewhere else. It's like the analogy I used in my Uranus and Taurus video, where I talked about, it's like Uranus and Taurus, it's like we're on an iceberg and it's melting. We have to jump to the next one in order to survive. Like, you could stay there if you want, but you're probably going to end up in the water and dead. So you can stay there where you're at right now, knowing that it's dissolving, that it's falling away, or you could take a leap of faith and you can figure out how to get grounded somewhere else. And the biggest thing with this is that it's all about choice. This isn't about, like, not necessarily things just kind of happening, but really choosing and making it your idea to take that leap. Don't force yourself into a situation where you have to, like, you don't have a choice anymore. Really choose to make that next step. And, you know, yeah, the next iceberg, it's got ice on it. You don't know if you're going to stick the landing. You don't know if you can even make the jump. But it's about choosing that, trusting that process. And especially as Venus squares Uranus, it's going to be kind of like, I want to feel comfortable. I want to be here. I want to feel comfortable. I want to be here. That's the biggest thing. And we can't really do that. The moon is going to be in Aries. It's going to be squaring Saturn. You know, Mars is going to conjunct the south node. We got to go somewhere else. We got to move somewhere else. We got to figure out how to do it. And it's going to be kind of like, you know, the emotional and frustrating and kind of like a pain in the ass, to be honest with you guys. But this is the process. When I talk about trusting the process, this is the process. Like, I cannot emphasize that enough. So trust this process. Then on Friday, not a lot happens. The moon will then square Pluto, but it sextiles Mars and it sextiles Saturn. Good news, because actually, oh no, not sextile Saturn, I lied. It squares Saturn as well still, but it does sextile Mars, where we get this opportunity to go, okay, you know, this didn't work, this didn't work, this didn't work. Being angry didn't work, being frustrated didn't work. What's going to work is being determined and doing what it takes to see everything the way that you need to see it, because that's kind of what's happening. Mars is in Aquarius, it's conjunct the south node. You're going to want to have all the answers. You're going to want to have some tests before you make that initial leap. But this really is about getting some good test results. Like, that's what Friday is going to be really good for. Testing the waters, really seeing all the perspectives and seeing which one's going to work best for you. Then on Saturday, moon squares Mars, enters Taurus actually. It sextiles the sun and Mercury, conjuncts Uranus, and squares Venus. I know that was just a lot. But as the moon goes into Taurus and starts squaring Mars, this is when it's kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm here. I gotta get out of my comfort zone. I gotta make change. I've got to decide and I've got to go. And it's going to conjunct Uranus, where it's going to be kind of like, oh, all of a sudden that iceberg you're on just decreased 50%. Like, whoa, like, okay, we got to move. I can't just get comfortable here. And as the moon, square Mars, it's going to be kind of like, well, I don't have all the answers, you know, I don't have all the perspectives, I don't, you know, you're going to give yourself a million reasons why you can't. But it is going to be squaring Venus, and it is going to be sextiling the sun and Mercury. So as it squares Venus, you have to ask yourself, is this worth it? Is staying here in my comfort zone worth it? Is me staying comfortable and, you know, stubborn in that, is it worth it? Is that what you value right now? Is that what you need right now? And those are just big questions to ask yourself. And it's going to be sextiling Mercury and the sun. Mercury and the sun, like I said, here's the answers. Here's all the facts that you need. Like, you don't need more than this. And you've got to do something about that. You can't just wait for all the conditions to be right. Like, the best time to do something is now. Now is always good. So as we go through Saturday and go into Sunday, the moon trines Saturn, squares Mars. Mercury sextiles Uranus, and the moon opposes Jupiter, where as the moon trines Saturn, it's kind of like, okay, if we make it our idea, we can really restructure this and really take some good initiative and really find some grounding in somewhere else, if we know how to do it. As the moon squares Mars, though, taking that action isn't going to be easy. It is going to be a conscious decision to be like, hey, I'm getting out of my comfort zone and I'm doing this anyway. So as it trines Saturn, though, be aware of what you're doing. Like, you're making a conscious effort for change. You are looking at reality in a way that is serving you now, even though it's kind of like uncomfortable. Growth is always uncomfortable, but as it trines Saturn, you're actually making those progressive steps, and Saturn will bless you for that. Saturn wants you to have more structure. Saturn wants you to have more discipline. Saturn wants you to really be systematic about the way that you do things, and Saturn wants you to make a good system. Especially as Saturn's retrograde on the inside right now, where it's just our own limit, it's just our own system and our own structure that's really limiting us. And as the moon trines it, it's like, hey, let's find a way to really get this going. Then it will, Mercury will then sextile Uranus, which that's really good because Mercury's in Gemini, it's in its home sign, it's thinking, it's talking, it's going crazy. It's going to sextile Uranus in Taurus, where it's kind of like, hey, maybe I do have all the facts to make this leap. Maybe I do see everything the way I need to see it in order to take that jump and get out of my comfort zone. Because Uranus and Taurus is throwing us up and down. There's no ground to step on. We got to keep moving. And Mercury in Gemini, as it sextiles Uranus and Taurus, or it begins to sextile, I should say, that's when it's kind of like, okay, I see things the way I need to see them. I have all the facts straight. Let's go. Let's do it. And the moon's going to be opposing Jupiter, where the moon in Taurus is kind of like, yeah, I want to feel secure, I want to feel grounded, but as it opposes Jupiter, Jupiter's like, bro, like, go, like, you know, like, what are your desires? What do you want? What is your truth? Like, I love saying, what is your truth? Because that statement is so subjective and it only matters to you. And that's what all this is about. It's to you guys. Like, Jupiter's in Scorpio is like, all right, what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about these dark things that are inside of you? And do you want to make these positive? It's kind of like, this is the last planet to really go through Scorpio for a while, besides, you know, like Venus and Mars and stuff like that. And Jupiter's like, we can face all of our fears together and we can make them better. Like, we don't have to live in fear. We don't have to live in scarcity. We don't have to live in attachment to holding on to things. And as the moon is in Taurus and it opposes Jupiter, you might find yourself being able to be like, all right, like, I'm ready to let go. It's going to be kind of like extreme, but that's really what's going to happen. So that's what I got for you guys. I meant to mention on Saturday, the grand water trine ends until Mercury and the sun kind of go into Cancer and continue that. So that emotional energy kind of gets a little break for a second until later on when the sun and Mercury both go into Cancer. But other than that, this week, guys, be with this week. Really feel it out. Like, be very clear. It sounds like a lot. It sounds like it's going to be frustrating. It sounds like it's going to be emotional. But the biggest thing is just really be conscious and aware of what you're doing every single day. I think when the moon is in Aries is going to be probably the most frustrating time. But as the moon goes into Taurus and we go throughout this week, like, really trust this process. Really trust yourself. Put that value into taking care of what you need. And that's what I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much for watching all my videos, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing. If you guys want to support, check out my Patreon. And for my patrons, thank you guys so much, so much for your support. I absolutely love you guys. And I'll be seeing you guys soon.